Oxford defines entertainment as the action of providing or being provided with amusement or enjoyment. Amusement or enjoyment, basically just synonyms for entertainment. So you kind of just, the definition of happiness is to be happy. Like, okay, cool. Doesn't really mean anything. Merriam-Webster defines it as amusement or diversion provided especially by performers. Okay, again, this doesn't really mean anything. And that's a problem. So, anytime you're trying to create a product, an entertainment product, any kind of product, you're solving a problem. But as entertainers, we don't really know what problem we're solving. At least most people don't. If you ask people, okay, what's the point of playing a video game? Oh, it's an escape. It solves boredom. You're not really getting to what that means, though. And for the longest time, making games for 10 years, I didn't know. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was like, okay, I'm making something that's fun. I don't really know what fun is. There's something about like dopamine and, it's something along those lines. But I didn't really know what I was doing. And ultimately, it's very difficult to hit a target when you have no idea where you're aiming. So, in the past couple years, I went very deep into figuring out what the answer to this question is. What is entertainment on a fundamental level, on the most human level? What is it psychologically? What's going on in your head when you're engaged in entertainment? And that is what I'm going to share with you. If you try to find information on this topic, you're not really going to find much. For example, when I was trying to figure out how to do YouTube and grow my main channel, which is over 500,000 subscribers, I pulled tens and tens of millions of views. When I was trying to figure out, okay, how does YouTube work, right? Obviously the general information that you get is, oh, you need good click-through rate and you need good retention. It's like retention is basically how engaged people are in the video, how much watch time you're getting. And people say, oh yeah, you just need to get good watch time. Make engaging videos, make entertaining videos. It's like, okay, but what does that mean? How do you do that? And they're like, oh, you do good editing. Okay, but like, what about the editing makes it so that it's engaging? On a fundamental level, what does all this mean? Same thing with video games. When I was learning to make games, my games sucked. They were boring. And you ask people, okay, how do you make a game that's fun? And they'll be like, oh, there's like a challenge graph, and like you make it like challenging, but like not too challenging, and then like people are engaged. People generally don't really know, and it's not exactly a mainstream thing that is just common knowledge, and there are reasons for this that I'm gonna get into. So first, I'm gonna give you the actual definition for entertainment as described by me. So entertainment is a zero-risk shortcut that leads to gratification of one or more survival instincts. Okay? At a fundamental level, entertainment is anything that makes a shortcut. It's a shortcut based on minimal input from your body, minimal energy expenditure, that gets you as quickly as possible towards instinctual gratification. So, what does this mean? So, humans are animals, okay? We all know this. That's not controversial. And we all have instincts, okay? We've all got like the same set of like base programming that keeps us alive. In the same way that any other animal does, right? Any species that survives for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, or however long, right? As long as that species has existed, it is required to keep itself alive. It needs to have tendencies that keep itself alive, and it needs to have tendencies that ideally that would also help keep other members of its species alive, as well as leading to reproduction. Okay? This is what humans have. We've got survival instincts, instincts of self-preservation. We have instincts of species preservation, like social instincts. And those two kind of branches of this base programming are what essentially dictate all of your actions. Everything that you do, everything that you enjoy doing, and everything that you dislike doing is based around this concept. In a primal setting, most of these instincts do a pretty good job of keeping us appeased, keeping us happy, generally. Keeping us in a state where kind of our like if there was a graph and it's like, okay, highs of, happiness and satisfaction to lows of like difficulty and hardship. In a primal setting, generally speaking, you're going to have a more level and balanced lifestyle. But in modern life, just in the past, few hundred years here, that has been upset in a very serious way. And most of our primal survival instincts are not appeased at all. They are very strongly neglected. So in Western societies, we've set up life in a way that is not appealing. It really isn't appealing to the human animal, right? If you take us on an instinctual primal level, from a very young age, we start going to school. The school system is horrifically set up when it comes to basically it's set up in such a way that, whether intentionally or not, it consumes your will to live. Anybody that's been through school, or anybody that's watching this that might still be in school, you know this fully well. And then even once you're out of school, most jobs and occupations are also not instinctually fulfilling. Some people, many people do have very fulfilling jobs that they enjoy, but most people, they hate their job. And this is not just because like, oh, it's just boring. It's like, no. There are itches that are constantly gnawing at you. And I'm going to get into more of this because the implications are very far-reaching. For most people, sitting in an office, filling out spreadsheets for 9-10 hours a day doesn't feel great. So let me get more into this here. If I was to pull up a graph for you, you will see something that looks like this. This is a graph that I put together over the... Oh, you can't see all of it. Where should I... I'll put my camera up here. There we go. All right, so this is a graph that's not entirely inclusive, but this is something that I put together a couple years back when I was first really learning about all this stuff. So, on the self-preservation side, we've got things like enhancement of physical power, right? How can you increase your odds of survival via becoming more powerful, right? Literally by being faster. Why do people like fast cars? Well, okay, if you're fast, then you can more easily catch prey or outrun predators. Okay, it's not that crazy, And it's like, yeah, like what, speed. Why is speed such an interesting, engaging metric for dominance, right? It's a weird thing, right? The act of hunting, the act of stalking something, the act of catching and tracking prey, that is instinctually gratifying. Things like foraging. You go out and you pick berries. You go out and you collect things. Why do you think in video games there are hundreds, there's just items spread out all over the place? You play a battle royale game, there's items everywhere. Half of them you don't even want. But just getting to find those items and pick up those items is naturally engaging. Another really, really, really important thing is creating order out of chaotic scenarios. Humans are very distinctly capable of solving problems. We are much more capable of, advanced problem solving than most, if not any, probably any animal. Who am I kidding? We build rocket ships. We have a tendency to look at something that's chaotic and try to find ways that we can create patterns out of it. Why do we like doing jigsaw puzzles? Jigsaw puzzles are really stupid, like rationally. Like, why is that interesting? We took a picture, we chopped it into 2,000 pieces, and now we're going to reassemble it. Why? Because taking chaos and rearranging it in an orderly fashion helps us find new ways to survive. Okay? If you can take a pile of sticks and you can construct it into a shelter because oh, hey, when I stand under the trees, when it rains, I can stay dry. And when I'm dry, I stay warmer and I have a better chance of surviving, right? Hypothermia is bad. So if I could create my own tree, I could create a shelter by taking these sticks, making a roof, and then I can stay warmer and I can increase my odds of survival. So creating patterns out of chaotic scenarios leads to things like construction, technological advancement, the further research and discovery, creation of tools. Things like this are all very instinctually gratifying. On the other side of things, we've got species preservation. We've got things like safety in numbers, right? If you, I'll talk about this more in future videos, I'm sure, but if you're alone in the woods for ever, you're not as likely to survive as if you have other people around, right? You encounter that bear alone, odds aren't great. But if you've got 20 buddies with you, okay, now maybe you're on the right track. So being around people, having social connection, greatly increases your odds of survival. Again, in a primal setting. In modern life, that's not necessarily the case. Like, you could live alone in an apartment rationally. You're not probably going to die anytime soon. You're probably fine. But these instincts are still very, very, very deep rooted in all of us. We can't get away from this. This is going to be here no matter what. So that's a summary, but we need to get more into what this means and how this works and why we need entertainment. So your body and mind are programmed to give you these warning signs, right? As well as the positive affirmation when you're doing something good that is leading you closer towards survival or thriving in some sort of a natural scenario. There are also warning signs to indicate that you're not doing something that you should be doing, or that you're doing something that is actively working against your survival, or the survival of your peers as well. Obviously, taking examples from the body, we have a nervous system, okay? If I cut my arm, I feel pain, right? It's a warning sign. It needs to hurt. If being harmed felt good or completely neutral, then a lot more people would die unnecessarily, right? We need warning signals that are distinctly uncomfortable, that we do not like, so that we will address those problems before they get out of hand. And so in the same way that we've got these, physical warning signs, we've also got a lot of mental warning signs. So to kind of explain how this works, we need to get into conscious and subconscious thought. Now, keep in mind also, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have like some 20 years PhD level education on this stuff. My terminology might be wrong. I'm sure. I know that there are areas of study that are already similar to this. I haven't looked into them super thoroughly, but if you were to look into like behavioral psychology, I believe that lines up very, very closely with what I'm talking about here. But as a sort of quick summary, we've got our conscious thoughts, which are systematic. They're capable of advanced problem solving. We can recall memories. We can look forward in time, not literally, we can pre-plan things, right? We're capable of advanced problem solving. Okay, this is our cognitive thinking. But we also have our subconscious thoughts, or our subconscious. It's not necessarily impacting our thoughts directly, but indirectly through controlling your emotions. And your subconscious mind is taking input from the world around you, and it's making the dumbest possible observations that it can. From what I can tell, the subconscious mind is very narrow-sighted. It's not really capable of thinking forward. It's not really capable of rational thought. It takes input. Like, as an example, you could be on the 50th floor of a building that is perfectly well built. It's got a great foundation. It was constructed out of all the best materials, and you're standing in front of bulletproof, super strong glass. There's even a railing, and you look over the edge and you're going, oh my gosh, I'm about to die because I might fall off of this building. You're not going to fall off the building. You're indoors. There's a massive window here. Rationally, you know that you are not going to fall out of this building, but subconsciously, it's saying, get away from the window. You're about to die, because if you're standing on the edge of a cliff, running away from a bear, or being out in the wild, then yeah, falling off the cliff is a bad thing. Stay away from the edge. You're afraid of heights. So to summarize, conscious thought, rational. It's rational, it's forward thinking, it can solve problems. Subconscious thought, it takes immediate input and makes immediate conclusions. It's very irrational. That's where a lot of your emotions come from, and it's where a lot of your impulsive thinking comes from. To bring it back to modern life and how our day-to-day lives typically occur. In your day-to-day life, you know consciously, by going into work and filling out spreadsheets for 10 hours, that you are earning money, and that money can be used to pay for your rent and pay for your bills and pay for your food, and it allows you to survive. And that if you didn't do that, you'd be out on the streets and you'd be not having a very good time. You consciously know this. But subconsciously, your brain is not seeing any of the triggers that it needs to say, oh yes, we are actively working towards survival, right? If you're just sitting there at a computer, I mean, you know, some people are really, 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 they get a buzz by putting in those numbers and solving that kind of problem, right? Some people are like that. Not everybody is, though. And so what'll happen is your brain is not seeing the survival triggers that it needs in order to reaffirm that you're doing a good, positive thing. If you were out in the woods and you were building a log cabin, you would be getting these triggers. You'd be seeing the progress. You'd be seeing yourself working towards that goal, and you would be able to immediately, instinctually just know, like, okay, yes, I'm doing the right thing, and you would feel good about it. But the way that most people live, they're not getting these triggers. And so it starts leading towards warning signs coming up. You know, if you're lacking social interaction, then these are going to be feelings of loneliness. If you're lacking like survival instincts, if you're lacking more survival triggers, then that'll lead to a lot of depression and anxiety. And for this reason, we have entertainment. Social media, especially sites like Discord or Reddit that allow for slightly more direct interaction with people. They allow you to feel some sense of social connection. So even if you live alone and you don't interact with people much, you can see people talking, and you can, or you know, if you're on Discord, you can directly talk to people. Or if, you know, you're just watching YouTube or watching movies, you see the people, you see the faces, you hear them talking about things, right? And so you can kind of start to feel moderately socially sound, right? You might not feel as lonely. You know, we've got video games that help with instincts that revolve around, you know, problem solving and technological advancement, and our drive to create or to conquer or to explore. And we've got movies, which are more preferred by some people. Again, keep in mind though that movies they don't allow for as wide of coverage of most of our instincts, which is why the gaming industry is so exponentially larger than the film industry. But movies still are good for kind of, it's like a passive high. in a way, because you can just simply sit there. You're simply sitting, engaged, and it just beams the information, it beams these triggers into your mind. And then by the end of watching a movie, if it was a decently formatted movie that hits on a lot of the right triggers that you are lacking, then you will come out of it feeling, oh, I feel good. I feel like I did something. So, like for example, when you're watching a movie, your brain isn't thinking, oh yes, I am watching a movie in which fictional characters are doing things. Like consciously, yes, you are aware of that. But subconsciously, your brain is like, wow, you just defeated a whole army of orcs. Wow, you're such a great warrior. Your brain is thinking, wow, you came up with a great war battle strategy. Wow, you really managed to save that person. Good job, you saved them, and now their whole family is thanking you. Oh, you're so happy. Okay. Your brain doesn't really know what's going on subconsciously, but it's seeing the triggers that are popping up on screen. It's connecting the dots, and it's making you feel in a way very similar to what you would feel if you were experiencing that thing in real life, but without the long-term real-world benefit of those actions. You're still the same person that you were when you sat down on the couch. So ultimately, what entertainment is doing is it's cheating you towards fulfillment in some way. But where the issues start to come in is that, kind of as I've described, it's a band-aid solution to a much bigger problem, and has serious side effects as well. Ultimately, our need for entertainment is largely a first world problem. Not strictly, but more so than it would be if we were living in a primal scenario. The amount of depression and anxiety and loneliness that is caused by the way that most people live these days is far higher than it should be. But most people are able to generally get by off of entertainment and drugs as well. It's entertainment and drugs is mostly what people are getting through life with. People who are living unfulfilling lives. Obviously, there are plenty of people that are doing fine mentally, and it's largely due to just the way that they have formatted their lives. But it really does become kind of an issue for the people who are just getting by off of entertainment and drugs, because, and I don't necessarily mean hard drugs, but like, you get what I mean. Oh, also porn, that's another massive one. But basically, where the problem really comes in is that it doesn't matter how nice of a house you built in Minecraft. It doesn't matter how gratifying that was. When you turn off the screen, you have not improved anything. You haven't. It's just on the screen. And so what that means is that the utility of entertainment is literally just what's happening inside of your brain. It's just getting you by in your brain. It's like, think of it like the difference between renting a home and owning a home. Propping up your mental health with entertainment is like renting a home. You're not actually owning what you're putting your money into, what you're putting your time into. It's simply getting you by. It's getting you by until hopefully you can do something later on that'll be more long-term and more sustainable. What we have then is we've got entertainment, which is cheating your brain into thinking that you've accomplished things that you haven't, which then does not actually increase your odds of thriving in your life at all, and then also lowers your drive to do things that will increase your odds of thriving. And this is a very difficult problem that I'm not sure there's no good solution. There really is no good solution. Most people are completely unaware. Some people kind of generally know that it's like, oh yeah, when I scroll TikTok at the end of the day, it's, maybe it's not great for me or whatever. But a lot of people, they just don't fully understand how much this stuff affects their day-to-day life and just how much control it really has over them. If you're working for some random local business, like, your boss isn't evil. He's not intentionally trying to steal your will to live. He's like, hey, I need employees. Who am I going to call, right? Same thing with like the school system and teachers. It's like, yes, school is going to destroy your will to live for a lot of people. But your teachers don't know that. Your teachers don't know that. They're just trying to help. They're just trying to help. They're trying to educate. They're not aware of necessarily what's going on a fundamental level. The people who do know are the really, really, really big businesses. Think of any massive trillion-dollar company or the multi-billion-dollar companies. They are well aware. They are well aware that their employees, that they're hiring for positions that are eroding their employees' mental health. They're fully aware. They know this, okay? But they can't tell you that, because then you demand much higher pay, and they'd rather not do that. They don't want to be responsible for any of that stuff. So it's way more profitable to just say, hey, sorry you're feeling sad. Good luck with that, I guess. And also, I should also mention, I'm not saying that like this is the only cause of depression and anxiety, or that this is the only cause of like mental health issues, but it is a very large problem that is very uncommonly addressed and that many people don't understand well. Again, there are plenty of ways that mental health issues can come about, but this is one that I know to have been true in my life at many times, and I've seen it many, many times in the lives of people that I know. It is a very unfortunate reality, because it's like ultimately, like for the entertainment industry, business is great when people are depressed and anxious. Depressed, anxious people make the entertainment industry go crazy, okay? And also, it's better for employment costs. Why is this something that I'm speaking on? Ultimately, I mean, to put it simply, to keep it short, I don't want to become a corporate supervillain. For a while, I did, and that's how I learned most of this stuff. Talking about this is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. Pretty much since I learned it. As soon as I learned this, it was, I guess about 2 years ago. It was when I was doing market research and preparing to start working on Cuff Bust. I hadn't even come up with the concept for Cuff Bust yet, but I'd released Choo Choo Charles, and about halfway through development on Choo Choo Charles, I was thinking about stuff, and I was like, I should really look into human instinct, because it would make sense that humans would have strong instincts in the same way that other animals would, and maybe that's something that I could use within my business strategies. And so after I finished working on Choo Choo Charles, I spent 6 months in research, preparing my strategy for Cuff Bust, and this was the core of essentially my entire business strategy. Everything, from the moment that I came to understand how this stuff works, everything else fell into place perfectly. It was exciting to see that I'd found a strategy, a formula, that I'd really managed to boil things down to, the most fundamental building blocks of entertainment, right? Like that's a big deal. It had me excited, but at the same time, it's not what I thought entertainment was. Most people who get into the entertainment industry, they like making people smile. They like making people laugh. It's the entertainment and creativity are oftentimes not associated with analytics and with data and with hardcore strategy. It's much more like, oh, express yourself. And it just feels much more almost spiritual in nature. And that's what I thought entertainment was. To eventually come to realize, oh, it actually isn't. And it's not to say that everybody who's in the entertainment industry is doing this. There are people who approach it from more of a, they're shooting blind, right? Ultimately, if you're simply just letting yourself be creative, it's like there are a lot of very creative people who just have an intuitive sense of like what's entertaining and what people like, and they're just good at it naturally, and they don't need to do deep dives into analytics and psychology in order to figure out how to make an entertaining video game or movie or song or anything like that. I'm pretty stupid though. I don't have that intuitive sense. So this is what I had to try and figure out when learning just how far-reaching the implications are and what it actually means in the greater context of, people's lives. It's something that I have just felt a consistent sort of moral obligation to share, because I feel like it's inevitable that there will be some people who hear this who will come to understand a lot of the problems and struggles that they might be having in their own lives, in a way that they didn't before. Yeah, it's not really beneficial to me to be talking about this. Naturally, I'm going to get more hate for this than I've probably gotten on anything else that I've ever done. Just because, mental health is such a touchy topic. Wouldn't be surprised if I'm taking a slight pay cut because of that. If, talking about this kind of stuff. Because I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff on this channel that people probably won't really like to hear. So, falling out of favor with some folks is probably a natural thing that's going to happen. But again, I've kind of gotten to this point where I don't really care, because it feels like there are more people that will benefit than the number of people who will be made mildly uncomfortable. To summarize, I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to stop watching entertainment and playing video games. I'm trying to give you a different framework, a different lens that you could maybe use to view how you're growing your business, how you're living your life, how you're working, how you're approaching your career, how you're approaching school, whatever it might be. It's a different lens that you could try and view things through and use to do whatever with. I don't know. That's about it.